I'm your classmate, and I'm going to be showcasing DC Universe Online today. It's a game that came out through Sony Entertainment subsidiary, which then became Daybreak Games after transitioning from Dimensional Inc. Now, this is entirely based on the DC comic universe, so you'll see NPCs such as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Now, as you can see here, my character it looks like Red X from the comics. However, that is not his gear style. One of the prominent features that adopted early during its launch in 2011 was the idea that each piece of gear has its own style, but the style system, the aesthetics, are independent from the gear itself. So every time you equip a piece of gear with that style, you unlock it permanently for free to use for your aesthetic, however you so choose to like intermingle the different styles. So as you see here, I'm Red X, but my gear style is very different. This piece is corrupted, while this is enhanced energy reaver. So it's a very ahead of its time concept to have in a game, whereas another popular game, Destiny 2, through Bungie, uses the idea of a limited amount of quests per season that allow you to do the same thing, whereas this is just unlimited and free since launch over a decade ago. Another few key features that they've implemented like that is a enhanced base building aesthetic, which we will get to a little bit after the gameplay, and I'll show you some of my favorite parts about the cathartic passive gaming, where I'm not like actively killing things. But for this moment, we're gonna jump in. I'm currently on my electric DPS, so he focuses on a lot of AOE and damage over time. Now, in DC, your raid functions are a little bit different than MMO that you might see like World of Warcraft. Now, each power, and there's I believe 12 now, have a different support role, and that's how you choose your power. For example, gadgets that you might see kind of like Batman is a control power, and controllers in this provide power and debuffs. There's also healers like my electric character here, or tanks like a fire character. Now, what sets them apart is every single support power role can use this tab right here to switch roles to damage stance. Now, that might sound a little concerning because in your conventional MMOs, you have loot drops which are determined by the party leader. However, in DC, long ago, roughly I believe 8 years ago into the game, about 4 years in, they transitioned to a individual loot drop system. Now, games such as Borderlands or Tiny Tina in that series have a similar function of cooperative loot drops. However, DC was an early adopter of this before it had a terminology and has been very efficient with its function since. So, anytime you go into a raid, everyone is getting their own unique drops, and you're not fighting over like special drops or rare ones, as everybody gets their own, and it becomes just an RNG thing. Another cool feature is I'm currently in the Kaznia, which is the newest DLC. And as you can see, my combat rating over here is 469. But as a way to include newer players along with veteran players, if you do content with them and you are higher, it will clamp you down to the highest of that CR for that instance. Or if you are lower level and you go to the event space like this, it will raise your CR to the minimum of that. So it really fosters the idea of veteran players being able to play with newer players. As such, when you're going through those, you're still getting currency and gear that is equal to what your current CR is. So it really buffs the reasoning for the veteran players to assist the newer players in random queues, even if they don't talk in game, to complete content so that they're both benefiting mutually, and there's a reason to foster new growth and continue the game for the longevity without the risk of it becoming stale or the player base diminishing. um, Now, I touched a little bit on the diversity and the inclusiveness. What's really cool about this is because it's in the DC Comics, you get a lot more of the diversity. For example, there's styles based on Dreamer, a transgender hero, along with the entire DLC and the BOP, or as the acronym is fully described, the Birds of Prey, where Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy are following the DC Comics storyline where they have become a bisexual couple. And instead of Harley being with the Joker, she is now in a romantic relationship with Poison Ivy, um, where it fully showcases their independence, but also like the romance of their coupling, um, where they've devoted an entire DLC to it to really give the justice that it deserves, and not just a kind of PR money grab that you see with a lot of the heteronormative, like male dominated game series, where it's kind of tailored to that very cis straight male agenda, which I really like. Like the idea that it's kind of got a little bit of everything for everyone is very appealing to me. Even though I've been a diehard since day one, it kind of keeps me in the game because I really like that they're not like shoving that important stuff off to the side, and they're bringing it to the forefront and making it integral parts of large like content throughout the game through the years. Um, and I hope that brings in a lot more people as well, because this is kind of a sleeper game as it launched during a big era of Call of Duty and Halo, so it kind of got brushed down to the side a bit. And I don't know a lot of people outside of my friend group that have actually even heard of the game. Recently, I got my girlfriend into it, and she's been enjoying it, but uh, she's a year older than me, and she had never heard about it before. So it's kind of interesting to bring in new people and seeing and the features, and then being astounded by like all the really cool things that you don't get in a lot of other games. So let's jump in. We'll finish off a bit in my base, and I'll show you some of the cool like personal areas that you can design before I kind of finish up with the reason why I picked this game. So the game that I have, the sorry, the the base that I have here is not the normal layout. I actually paid a little bit extra for it, $10, because I wanted the Fortress of Solitude. I'm a big Superman guy. I know most people are like, it's Superman, everybody likes Superman. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those guys. But as you can see here, I have kind of like a lava spout thing going on in the first area, and my dog Crypto wanting to play. But if you go over here, it's a wildly different aesthetic. I farmed out the Christmas event this last 3 months ago, and I was able to make this Yuletide living room aspect as we move into the main hall. And another very cool feature, DC was one of the first adopters of the concept of an armory loadout system. As you can see, I'm a bit of a fashionista here. I am hoarding armor styles, and hopefully you don't judge me too harshly for this. I like my different outfits. I've tried to reduce the armories, and it just doesn't work. As you can see out here, it's the Arctic where the fortress is supposed to be, and I have some cool little features that I've acquired throughout gaming for free inside, doing different quests. Where I have a broker system access point. I have my mail system, my bank for my characters, so I can actually eliminate going to some of the social areas altogether on days where I just really don't want to have to deal with a whole horde of other players. I could just go to my own base and do all the stuff I need to before going into one of the instances or a raid or something like that. I can just kind of chill. I can restrict or give access to whoever I want in game, so nobody is just randomly coming into my base. And then the last feature I'll show is the teleporter. So I know other games like World of Warcraft, they have like mounts and stuff like that for their, getting to different areas. But from its onset, within the first couple of years, DC had teleports, and then eventually for your bases, they had personal teleporters. I have all the mods, so I can go everywhere in the game almost instantly. As you'll see, all of the different episode areas, and we can teleport back to Kaznia. Kaznia is actually interesting because it is a DC Comics equivalent and kind of analog for Yugoslavia. As I don't know if you noticed when we were here shortly earlier in the video, it has a very rustic Eastern European architecture. Now to finish up, because I feel like I'm probably close to that 10-minute mark, the main reason I chose this game was Little backstory for me, I grew up where I was in high school in the 2000s, so pre 2010. I'm a little older than probably most of my classmates, or if not all of them. And I was a very obese kid at the time, and a nerd, which back in that social era was kind of not accepted. So me and my friend Mike, shout out to my buddy, I love you guy, we discovered this game, and we had seen trailers all over the place, and we were both like hardcore like DC comic nerds, and we're like, hey, let's try it out. Um, the premise of your character is that Lex Luthor from the future, to prevent Brainiac, sentient robot intelligence, from taking over the world, was to implant these nanites in the past, these exobytes, and give people powers. So your character is actually one of those people. Now, there's not specifics on what your character did prior, but like in some of the trailers you see, it's like it's everyday people, the mail person, the cashier at the McDonald's, like your neighbor Fred down the road. It's that idea that the common person has now become a superhero, or if you like being a little naughty, a supervillain on the other side of the game. But generally, 80% of the population are heroes. So you become this, the main character, this quote unquote everyman, who is now thrust into this responsibility, very Spider-Man-y like. And I don't know, it really just kind of resonated with me. Um, you know, like that escapism in a game where it's got all those aspects of like MMOs that you like, but also the idea that you're surrounded by all these giants of the comic world, and you're like standing toe to toe with them, just this Joe Schmo that's become a hero. And I just really like that, and it kind of kept me in there. And then all the other features just accentuated that. So I highly recommend it. I hope you guys try it, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully it wasn't a little too long.